Great.
Hello, everybody. Today we have a very distinguished person with us. I'm very happy to have him on this channel. It's actually lucky that he has agreed to be here. He's very passionate about data. He has so many things to say about it. He's actually a doer. So let's listen to him. Right now we have with us Mr. Habeeb. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Mr. Habeeb.
Thank you, Subodh. Privileged to be here. I think after hearing what you do and why you're doing it, it makes it even much more enriching to be a part of this journey. And one of the things which I identify with you is I'm a non-conformist as you are, a creative thinker because I've chosen to look at data in a manner that probably most people haven't done so. I've not been a data person. I'm not a technology educated person in that sense. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a maths graduate. I'm not a statistical graduate. I'm not a management graduate. Yeah.
So who are you?
So I've basically been a curious student. I've done my commerce graduation. I've done my postgraduate diploma in management. I was from a city which doesn't exist anymore. We did mention that previously in your conversations. I'm from Bangalore. I was born and brought up in Bangalore. And I always say that Bangalore doesn't exist anymore because it's now become Bengaluru.
Yes.
And the era in which I grew up there, I studied there, that entire culture doesn't exist anymore, nor does the charm of that city exist anymore. People say I'm nostalgic about it. Yes, I am, but I also am rootless because that city is not what it was. I left Bangalore sometime in 94 after I finished my graduation. I did my first job. I did a bunch of jobs over there. I came from a business family, so I started working very, very early. Uh, in the family business, I used to work, I think, if I remember right, my first stint with the business started when I was about 11 years old. And I've been working since then. It's not stopped. I had my own business by the age of 14. As soon as I passed my 10th, I gave up studying after 10th. And a year later, I started my studies back. I started going to evening college. So I did my graduation from evening college. I did my post-graduation diploma from evening college. I was working all the time while I did that. And I started working. I wanted to move out of the business because by the time I was 20, when I finished my graduation, I had a well-settled business practice. I had a showroom on textile show, so I was earning pretty well. I was the only son in the family. You finished your graduation, you got a well-settled business. The next thing is get you married. And I was like, this is too early for me to do that. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do much more.
Yeah.
So I chose to move out. I was always interested in the creative arts. I used to do a lot of designing for my customers for their clothes. So fashion design, and from there I was interested in interior design. So then I said I wanted to learn interior design better. Then I joined a firm and I got into project management with them. And I outgrew that firm very quickly. I was fortunate the owner of that firm saw that and he said, listen, I think you're destined for larger things. I don't think I can teach you anymore.
Hmm.
So I joined another larger interior firm. And I was pitching for their business. I pitched for a computer company once upon a time that existed called Lanacida. They were into computer training. And when I was pitching for them, they asked me, why don't I join them? I
Yeah.
said, what will I do? So they said, no, you join us, handle corporate training, you pitch because we think you're good. I said, okay. And I joined them. And as part of corporate training in computers at that point of time, I was pitching for Times of India. And that, which is some 4 months later, uh, Times of India said, why don't you join us? I said, what will I do? They said, no, you join.
Mhm.
You join us. We think there's a lot you can do with us. And I joined the response department. And there started my journey with media. I started over there. I was given what was called the newcomers testing ground, which is selling special features. So my first project was to sell
Mm.
a special feature in Times of India, Lucknow, and I had to sell that in Bangalore. So, so that started my journey. Then I moved on within Times of India. I moved on from there. I set up as part of the founding team of Times FM. I sold India's first FM sponsorship.
Yeah.
And then they started Times TV.
Yeah.
I handled production also with
Mm.
there. As part of that, I was meeting advertising agencies. So, in one such meeting, I had with Rhoda Mehta, who was a very senior person at Ogilvy.
Yeah.
And she said, why don't you join us?
Yeah.
And again, I had the same question, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Mhm.
So she said, come to Bombay.
Yeah.
We're setting up a media buying and planning thing.
Yeah.
So you'd be my first recruit, come to Bombay.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And parallelly, I had Shekhar Kapoor reach out to me. He was starting a channel at that point of time called BITV. So he also said, come to Bombay. I said, anyways, now I have two offers from Bombay. Let me go to Bombay and see what comes out of it. Ultimately, I chose to join Ogilvy. And I spent 8 years with Ogilvy
Wow.
uh, in this role. And then ultimately, I spent over a decade. I spent about 10 years totally with Ogilvy. I traveled the world. I was part of the world's first digital pitch, which was way back in 1997 in New
Wow.
York,
Yeah.
where Ogilvy was pitching for IBM.
Yeah.
So we were actually laughed at IBM. And they said, what are you guys going to tell us about digital and technology? 3 hours later, Ogilvy walked out with the IBM business,
Yeah.
which still remains with Ogilvy
Yeah.
30 years down the line. So that was the world's first digital pitch. And the funny thing was, I was sent from India. And when I applied for my visa, the US consulate in Bombay gave me a 15-year visa, multi-return, multi-entry. I said, I don't want it. I'm going there. What's the minimum? They said 3 months. I said, give me 3 months. They said, but we're giving this to you. I said, I don't want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just took a 3 month visa because I was very, very clear that what I had to do, I had to do in India.
Yeah.
And a lot of people told me, you're a fool. Without asking if you've been given, you should have taken it. I said, but that's not my interest.
Yeah.
I do not want to be in the US. I
Yeah.
want to build what I need to build in India. So I came back in 2 months' time, set up India's first digital agency. As part of this journey in my previous role, I'd already won India's first gold at Cannes for creating Kodak moments.
Yeah.
So that was something which I created. And it was India's first gold at Cannes at that point of time. So I had a bit of a journey. Then I moved into media, and that's when I started looking at data, started understanding what data is. Then I moved from there to setting up for Unilever with WPP as part of Mindshare. Then I moved to the IPG group where I spent the last 16 years, and I left them as group chief marketing officer. And it was a funny incident at IPG which got me to do what I started doing, because digital was all over the place. I'd already seen the internet bubble in the first round in the 1990s, and then the new age bubble with Facebook and Google. I call it a bubble still
Yeah.
because it's not based on reality, it's created. So when I was looking for data, and everybody said the best data is with the large social platforms. So I was talking to one of them and I said I needed data for, incidentally, for Bangalore to work some planning out. They said, yeah, we've got over 60 million people, users over there, and we have over 700 attributes per person. I said, fantastic. I That rich data is what I'm looking at. And I asked them the proverbial painful question, which I was always recognized for. I said, for how many of these 60 million people do you capture all 700 attributes?
Yeah.
And they went silent. And then it was whispered to me saying that we'll get back to you. And I had a very senior person call me up and tell me, why do you ask such tough questions? I said, it's fundamental. He said, you know, the industry average is around 1%. I said, what do you mean industry averages? He said, nobody can capture all attributes. It's for less than 1% of the users we have that those number of attributes are captured. And then I said, how do you create the profiling that you claim and the targeting that you claim? Oh, that we have algorithms to work that out. So I said, guys, this is probably the biggest con which is running in the world and which is still running today. I said, no. And this is the data on which decisions are being taken and billions of dollars are being spent, and which is now powering AI. Can you imagine the kind of challenges that are going to be coming up, are already coming up?
Yeah.
So I wanted to create what I believe was the universal data set,
Yeah.
where you map every individual without mapping their personal identity, and you map in depth at micro geo. So I started that exercise. I built that entire process along with a bunch of colleagues of mine, where we said there is data already available. You have aggregate data for various types, which is already available in the public domain by government sources, historical aspect. And we built this entire model and we profiled the entire population of India. So today I have profiled over 1.4 billion people. I've mapped over 5,000 attributes to each one of them, and they're mapped at microgeography. So what you were mentioning as part of the goal to be able to create enterprise at microgeo level, I would be able to reasonably tell you that within that particular village, how's the population broken up in terms of age, gender, education, health, opinions, beliefs, attitudes, consumption across multiple product categories, consumption of media, access to infrastructure. And that is the entire piece which I've spent the last almost 8 years building out.
Yeah.
And from what I know, you've been an economist and you've seen quite a bit of data. From what I've heard, at least, there isn't another data set which has that kind of depth, at that kind of granularity, and that kind of universal coverage. I mean, you may have pieces available in bits and pieces, but to have the entire nation, every single village, every single district, every single city, every single state, every single union territory mapped down in urban centers to ward levels,
Yeah.
in rural centers to
Yeah.
village levels.
Yes.
And you have the same set of information for everyone across the world. So when I say 5,000, those 5,000 plus are marked for every individual.
Yes.
It is not like, in urban India, I have this information, but in
Mm.
rural India, I don't have that information. I have some other. It is a
Yeah.
standardized table with the same set of information available
Mm.
across.
Mm.
And you can cross tabulate it in whichever way you want. You can
Mm.
filter it, slice it, dice it.
Mm.
You can do a whole lot of stuff with it. So, one of the things that we were looking at was, for example, we were able to showcase how many diabetics consume carbonated soft drinks.
Mm. Wow. Wow, that's something.
And of those people who consume these carbonated soft drinks in Delhi, how many of them read Hindustan Times?
Right. Wow. Wow. That's something.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that this data can enable.
Right.
And this is just one example that I've
Mm.
used.
Mm.
But that's the kind of analysis, cohort building, micro level mapping you can go to. I can turn on and say, okay, how many of these diabetics who drink carbonated soft drinks and who read the Hindustan Time, how many of them have medical insurance?
Yeah.
Right. And if they have medical insurance, do they invest in mutual funds or they don't invest in mutual funds?
Wow.
Yeah. And I can then turn around and say, these people, what do they use the internet for?
Yeah.
Do they download music? Do they download videos? Do they use it for social media? Do they use it to just surf the net and research? And what is their purchase behavior for, let's say, a car? So if this person is going to buy a car, what is it that the person is expecting in the car? Should it reflect their personality? Are they looking for efficiency? Are they looking for robustness? I can just go on. So that's the kind of a data set we've actually gone out and created.
Yeah.
And now people are perplexed
Yeah.
as to how to use it.
Yeah.
Because everybody is used to data which is historical, the top-down approach, as we call it.
Correct.
Yeah. And this data is completely bottom-up. It is built bottom-up. It
Mm.
addresses bottom-up
Mm.
in a particular locality or in a particular region or in
Mm.
a particular village.
Mm.
And we had tested this out during COVID.
Mm.
I don't know if you're aware, India was the only country in the world which had access to data at ward level
Yeah.
across the country
Mm.
with an estimate of a number of people who could potentially be infected by COVID.
Mm.
And this was available and shared with the government in the first week of May of 2020, the first round of COVID.
Right. Right.
And we had shared that with the government.
Yeah.
But the government was very upset with us
Yeah.
because COVID was going to go away in 3 weeks. And they saw
Yeah.
our estimates
Yeah.
and they said, you guys are trying to create panic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we, anyways, published that on our website.
Yeah.
It's still available
Yeah.
at theDATAfirm.in. And we had forecast from April to September. We validated our data in December after the sero surveys came out.
Yeah.
So I must say, our lowest accuracy
Yeah.
of the forecast was 93.2%.
Wow.
And the highest accuracy we got was about 97.4%. Okay.
Very
But that's
impressive.
the magic of India.
That's very impressive. It's very, very impressive. Yeah.
The magic of India is it's not valued.
Yeah.
And because we're based out of India, we built this out for India. The world doesn't look at you that seriously. If I'd done 1/10 of this work sitting in the valley,
Yeah.
I'd be talking about something else, right? So what we're looking at and what we believe that is uh, today, whatever technology is happening in the world is devoid of humanism
Hmm.
because the way it is designed, it narrowcasts, but the narrowcasting is done in such a way, it's done from a herd perspective.
Hmm.
The rabbit holing which happens is also done while it makes you feel it's done for you. They're actually herding multiple people into the same rabbit hole. It's just that you don't see it and you're not aware about it.
Right.
So, because that's how they make money.
Right.
The digital economy runs on attention. So, the
Yeah.
more number of people they're able to capture at a particular point of time to get
Yeah.
maximum amount of attention, the more money is made.
Right.
And our belief is that this is actually destroying our social fabric
Yeah.
because it's curtailing curiosity.
Hmm.
It's creating very narrow perceptions.
Hmm.
And the only reason it's being done is because, as of now, technology doesn't seem to find an alternative way.
Hmm.
They've worked out this programming at a particular point in time, and it seems to have been working. They've fallen into the same rabbit hole themselves,
Yeah.
and they've continued refining the same thing
Yeah.
rather than looking at an alternative approach. And where we believe, and look at it probably 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, I see universal basic income becoming a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I see citizen data being considered as sovereign wealth.
Hmm.
And the government is going to sell your data to fund the universal basic income
Hmm.
approach. Yeah. What we believe is when we have non personal identity data, it works both for the government
Hmm.
as well as the citizen.
Hmm.
It helps prevent the Orwellian vision where government control is absolute on the citizen, but at the same point of time enables a lot of things to get provided for the citizen without controlling the citizen in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why my entire thing was to build universal data
Hmm.
without personal identity. A lot of people said universal data itself is a bar you're setting which is way too high
Okay.
because over the last 8 decades, multiple people have tried to do it.
Hmm.
Some of the largest companies today in the world have spent billions of dollars trying to do it with access to the kind of data that they have in the digital realm, and they've not been successful. What makes you think you will be successful? I said my only response to that was just because the biggest and the best have not succeeded, history is witness to the fact it's always been the unknowns who've created the difference. So the recognized few may not have succeeded doesn't mean I shouldn't try.
Right. And by your definition, you are a success, obviously. And that's why you're telling us all this. Now, the question is, what's your revenue model?
So we've now building products on top of it. We just started that. We started working with some of the large MNCs, one of the large MNCs to start with, where they validated the data and they're expanding that entire thing. So we're creating products which can help them use that data. For example, this MNC is using this data where we help them identify at microgeography levels what is the potential consumer base, and they map their distribution against that to see where's the mismatch.
Yeah.
And they've identified there's been a massive level of mismatch.
Okay.
Where there's potential consumer base vis-a-vis the distribution level which needs to be there, and where the distribution levels are really strong and the potential consumer base is. So just optimizing that has the potential to improve bottom lines as high as 30%.
Yeah.
It's not a small number in that
Not at
context,
all.
right?
No.
Yeah. So, but this is early days. So that's one of the ways that we're looking at it. We're looking at working with partners, which in discussion, advanced discussion is how can we improve digital advertising targeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
To give relevant audiences. So we had done this experiment for a premium laptop brand.
Yeah.
Their digital agency had given them a target base in a city like Mumbai, that they would need to reach about 4 million people.
Yeah.
And the cost of the laptop was closer to 3 lakhs at that point of time. This is 2 years back when we were experimenting. And we told them the base for that in Bombay was 47,000 people.
Yeah.
And they targeted those 47,000 people. They achieved their sales targets in just 1 week, spending less than 1/30th of what their budget was.
Okay.
But that makes us a problem for a lot of businesses.
Yes, obviously. Obviously.
So we're refining that particular model. We're also working with GIS companies to create what we're calling the entire human landscape mapping. So it's not just for you to target a bunch of people, you also know what kind of an environment is there, what's near them, what's not near them, for you to be able to choose and plan your business in that manner. So that is another thing that we're looking at. We're opening conversation with gene mapping companies.
Yeah.
Because there's a dearth of data over there in terms of what is possible.
Okay.
So the wider base, how can they take gene mapping to a much, much larger base and therefore improve efficacy and accuracy, which can then impact personalized healthcare solutions in that manner.
Okay.
Where privacy again is so important. So when they work with the data set like ours, they're able to manage that particular aspect. So these are yet very early stage, but a lot of conversations, very different kinds of conversations. Like, for example, what you were looking at doing, the kind of data set we have can help improve your planning and your time to market before you go in over there.
Yeah, I
dramatically.
Understand. Yeah, no, I understand. But before we get there, I want to get there. Obviously, heavy upfront investment costs to collect such a nanoscale data set in large numbers. So how did you finance it?
We're bootstrapped.
Bootstrapped. Okay.
We've not gone to investors.
Okay.
Because we realized the sensitivity of what we're working on.
Yeah.
And we did not want to be caught in a situation where investors would drive the focus on where we should go.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure we've got our foundations really, really solid so that, when and if we get investors in, they can't change path.
Right.
So we've done that completely bootstrapped.
Okay, I understand. No, this is curiosity because
absolutely
it is. I am involved actually in the US with a younger person than me who has collected a huge database on medical expenses. So there are issues where it comes up. What's the cost of, say, a knee surgery in this zip code, what you would call in US zip code, or in
Yeah,
India we
yeah.
call PIN code. What's the cost of a
Pin
knee
code.
surgery in this zip code? His data set will tell you this is the actual cost, not what is the asking price or whatever. Based on the actual payments, this is what has happened. So he's down by zip code. He can sell, and he's also looking to monetize that data. And he has asked me to help with monetizing it. I don't want to copy your model. I just want to tell you that data is today giving rise to certain opportunities that are very new, but the cost of collecting that data is quite high, and somebody has to finance it. I don't think he bootstrapped. I haven't asked him how he bootstrapped. Looks like he got some investors in. So I was curious. So you bootstrapped. Okay,
Yeah,
fine. Don't want to distract you from your topic, and we will talk about how you can help us offline. But let's
yeah.
continue with your story.
So, this story stems from what I call uh, a complete passionate aspect of ensuring uh, the human aspect remains alive despite whatever technology is coming in. And the concern which I had, which drove me to doing this, was led by this particular goal. Because I realized the human aspect was diminishing rapidly. And it is evident around us even today when we look at people responding to the various kind of situations around the world. The lack of empathy, or in fact, the apathy to a lot of that, uh, is not just based on misinformation and disinformation, which is carried out by governments today at scale. It also stems from the fact of not being isolated, not belonging. The human belonging aspect is what technology has uh, diminished dramatically. While it's enabled communication, that's the visible part of it where people say it's connected a lot of people together. Absolutely, it has connected a lot of people together. But how many people has it enabled bond as human beings? We are so divided in our mindsets because of our realities and the bubble that technology creates around us. Yeah, the rabbit hole that pushes us into. And some of those fissures are so wide and have started becoming so deep, it's a matter of concern.
Hmm.
And that's where I realized data is at the heart of it. If I can enable technology with the right kind of data, which will bring back the human connect, it will bring back a wider understanding of people, and will recreate certain models that will enable this. Instead of just because you saw a particular piece of content which was pertaining to let's say the Democrats in the US, right? You're not going to get bombarded with all content or majority of the content being about Democrats alone, because the machine recognizes you to be a human being and understands that you saw that piece at a point in time and you are a person of varied interest, and
Hmm.
it feeds you information of multiple sets of interests, therefore helping you widen your perspective
Hmm.
rather than buttonhole you and push you down this rabbit hole by only feeding you a particular kind of content.
Okay.
And that will also translate into the kind of product solutions which are going to come up there, the service solutions which are going to come up there, the kind of future technology which is going to come up there, the level of personalization which is possible because of such data. Imagine this data being embedded into chips which are used across multiple devices, as
Hmm.
how personalized that can be, and yet non intrusive.
Hmm.
not violating your privacy,
Mm.
in fact, protecting your privacy on the other side, but
Mhm.
personalizing it to you to that degree. So that is the dream. People say it's too big a dream. I said, it's a dream.
Yeah, it's a dream. I
There's no
agree.
such thing as a
But
big dream or a
no,
small dream. It's a
no,
dream.
it's a dream.
Yeah.
It's a dream. Yes,
And
I agree with
it's
that.
a pursuit. Yeah, it's a pursuit in that direction.
Yeah,
Whether I would see that change in my lifetime
yeah,
or will it trigger a change later?
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's the main point, to admit that we don't know. You know, and we
absolutely.
dream and we admit that we don't know. That's the only way to realize the dream. If you say, I know, you're fooling yourself.
True. I mean, that is almost like saying you're God,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you dream and you know you're God.
No,
You're not
I
human.
mean, you are a failure. You are a failure. Because when you say no, you know, you are actually a prisoner of your past thinking.
Exactly.
Right? You don't want to be a prisoner of your past thinking or of your experience, because the dream is new and you are restricting yourself to your past experience or your knowledge, then it's not going to work. If you say, I don't know, then you know how to get what is needed to make the dream come true. I think so. Right?
I
First,
agree with you.
first thing to say is, I don't know, but I will
Absolutely.
do it. Like you say, you bootstrapped. Okay, that's a very amazing story, because I can understand the costs are pretty high. Okay, and there's no revenue coming in at the start. So there's no way to self-finance from costs. So from revenues, early revenues aren't there. It's like, so how the heck do you do it? Well, I don't know, but you did it.
Well, all I can say is I thank my wife.
Yeah.
She's
Oh,
been
that goes
supportive.
without saying.
I mean, without her backing me and supporting me, the number of sacrifices that one needs to make in this journey is
Yeah.
immense.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't have a partner who can
No.
stand by you, it's impossible.
It's
Yeah.
impossible. I agree 100%. I agree
So,
100%. Yes,
I give all credit to her in that particular
absolutely.
case.
This is the only sensible way to be.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's been a great journey. I
Yeah,
mean, it has been a phenomenal journey.
yeah,
I've had to unlearn so much. I had to
yeah,
unlearn
yeah,
so much.
yeah.
But the joy of learning has always been the joy of learning. I mean, there's so much I've learned in return too. So, I mean, the philosophical aspect of life has only gotten enriched because of this.
Okay.
Your introspective aspect has gotten enriched because of this. Your outlook to the world has gotten enriched because of this entire journey. And I'm just thankful for it.
Okay, let me ask you a standard question now. What tips do you have for young people? Young meaning,
Intros-
below 20 years
yeah.
of age.
Introspect, introspect, introspect. Learn how to delve within yourself because you have no idea of the power that already exists within you. In a world which is focusing you and forcing you to look outside of yourself, the biggest energy that you have, the biggest set of power that you have is within you. And be honest to yourself. It's the honest to yourself aspect which allows you to introspect. And you'd be amazed at what can come out of you. Absolutely amazing what can come out of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing more and more of it actually coming out, not under 20, but over 20 years. Under 20, they are still a little bit overwhelmed by the system, still trying to score marks, do this, do that. Some showing signs of introspection, but mostly sticking in the flow, But some are introspecting and saying different things. But over 20, 25, between 20, 25, I do hear young people following what you are saying, that look, there's a young man who told me he did BA economics and was a flop at it. Okay. Then he's became a music guy, not playing music, but making amps and this and that and all. He was in that also. Then he lost and some making some music, cultish, whatever. But he lost interest in that. Now he's into regenerative agriculture. And that's how he found me. He says, oh, now he's found a niche for himself, that there are all these well-off people who have these farms, and they don't want to grow the same old stuff there because there's nothing to discuss in your conversation, I guess. Hey, I'm growing wheat. I say, what? So they want to have some kind of farm which they can talk about. Right? So my farm is leading the way, which it isn't, but never mind, you can talk about it. So he says, I do designer farms. I said, great, so, it's some no-till method of growing, or, going beyond organic. Organic is 20 years old. You need to be in something that's new in agriculture. I'm interested in it. So he has figured out how to grow things better, faster, with less degradation of the soil. Basically, what you are after is no longer just higher yields, but less degradation of the soil. So we are no longer food short country, so you can't say, look, my output of wheat is contributing to the national objective. They say, what? The godowns are full of wheat that the government has bought, and we are exporting rice. So it doesn't make any sense to say that. But anyway, I'm seeing that spark in young people in India. I listen to so many. Some of them, they have that spark. Okay? So we are on pretty good grounds in that respect. Okay, anything else you would like to add here?
I only have a fear that a large majority is in deep slumber. And that scares me. That scares me every single day. And my hope over there stems from this aspect of saying one of the reasons of slumber has been technology. Until that changes, I don't see hope in these people being able to wake up.
So how has technology done this?
Technology works, like I said, the attention economy works on giving you shots of dopamine at very regular intervals so that you stay hooked.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the rabbit hole which they've created for you. So my entire thing is, if you widen a person's perspective, the person will not be able to sleep.
Right.
You narrow the person's perspective, the person will, it becomes routine. They don't want the blinkered. Right. So for me, slumber is the blinkered perspective.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, I think it will be beneficial for everyone.
Okay. All right. I understand. I mean, if you are in Instagram and TikTok's banned in India now, I guess.
Yeah.
If you are spending so much time on Instagram, you are blinkered. There's no escape from.
No, but that's true of every platform, right?
Yeah.
From LinkedIn to, I mean, that's the premise on which all of these platforms have been built.
Yes.
Without an exception.
Yes.
Right. So it's just that some have refined it to such a degree and some have not refined it to such a degree. That's the only difference.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I must say it has been a great pleasure to hear of such an unusual, first of all, journey. It's very few people who tell me they asked me to join. Most say I managed to land this job. It's the exact opposite. They asked me to join. So that's a very welcome change, and it certainly shows. And your dream is certainly something that I have not heard from anywhere. So I'm grateful to you for telling us about these things in a very simple way, very passionate way, and recognizing who is really the creator behind you, the power of behind you. I think that's the most important power that we all have. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much. And let's end it here. I want to talk to you offline.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye. I'll be back with another young person or an expert. Till then, bye everybody.
Definitely.